Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 306 of the Civil Gore podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And we have another unusual little show. I know we've kind of been like totally off format for like a while now, but it's all good things because we get like these, we've been getting inundated with screeners and interviews that have been amazing. And we like, it has to take the priority. I mean, I always knew our show's format would evolve. It always evolves. Honestly, I don't know if we'll ever like have a consistent like set format ever again, but that's okay. You know what? It's okay because we're always bringing you some kind of content.
Well, it's cool because we're getting like you said, we're getting inundated with screeners, but that means we're seeing them early. So it means we're getting ahead of them. So we're getting to watch them before you guys get to watch them and get to kind of get you pumped and excited about them. It's always like a win-win when we get these things.
Not like we're a real podcast.
Yeah, well, we get because the cast and crew they get to they get to come on and promote their stuff. It gives us content for the show. It's a good thing all around, and I absolutely love it. And this episode is no exception. So I was really excited because we watched this new movie that's coming out Friday. I'll Never Leave You Alone, and the lead actor in this is amazing.
Oh my gosh, so good.
Yeah, Kenneth Trujillo. I'm trying to say it with
you
the
make
accent.
it so dramatic. The start, like too. It's like, but yeah, what an awesome dude he was, man.
I was so excited because he's so good in this movie. And then when we found out that we were able to get him on the show, it was just incredible because like we always say, Brian and I always say, it's always a treat to get to talk to anyone on these films. But when you've just watched a movie that kind of blew you away, and you get to talk to the star of the movie that was just there, blowing you away, and that morning, it's incredible.
And especially with this one, where he's like, a lot of solo like sequences where he has like, he basically is the movie with a couple of like supplemental characters that come back in flashbacks and some real time. But like when you see this movie, trust me, and I recommend it 100%. You'll see why we were so excited to get to talk to, of all people, Kenneth Trujillo on it, because he's so good.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get right into the show. We got some other little surprises here around the interview. This is our first chop. All right, Brian. So I didn't really have anything from our first chop because we were kind of, we were trying to get this interview scheduled and everything this week. So we really didn't have like a set recording time. We were kind of juggling things up in the air. So I don't really have anything other than my Horror 365 challenge and my October Horror Movie Challenge are going gangbusters. I'm only 3 films away from finishing the October Horror Movie Challenge.
Yeah, Tim's like on the 720 Horror Challenge or something like that. 720? No, it was 782. What is 366 times 2? I can't do math. But yeah, you know what I mean. He's like Tim like just goes on. I actually texted him. I said, Tim, did you abandon your family and quit your job? You're killing this thing. 2 different simultaneous challenges that are like massive undertakings, and you're like ahead by like weeks.
Yeah, I tell you, when I get a project like this, I get like obsessed with it, and I get obsessed with finishing it. And I will tell you, after this challenge is over, I am taking a break I'm not taking a break from horror movies because I always watch horror movies.
I'd hope so, because otherwise I'm going to be a solo host here.
Well, we're always getting great screeners. Like there's always theatrical releases to watch. We've got Nosferatu coming out later this year. I still have to see Terrifier 3, which Brian's going to talk about. But I'm not taking a break from horror, but I am taking a break from challenges. I am not I've got to take a year off. I can't do the 365 challenge again.
And it's 366 this year. We picked the worst year. We picked the year with leap year, for God's sake. We got to throw in one extra movie.
It was fun. I mean, I'm not going to say it was a blast, but man, I think I'm down. Like, I think I got to watch like 56 more movies or something. And then I'm done. I got to take a break. I got to take a break off.
I'm in trouble because I think I did the math last night. Like, I think if I do 2 movies a day, I'm gonna surpass fine. So I
Yeah.
don't have to do exactly 2 movies a day, but I'm like, I don't want to make it to like I'm here like the last week of Christmas and I gotta like take a 24-hour movie binge or something. You know? It's like
Yeah, my goal was like, I was like, I've got to finish this before the holidays. That was my goal. Like, can I finish this before the holidays so I don't ever have to like worry about it? That was my thing. So anyway, that was my first chop. I'm gonna. My goal is to finish the October challenge by the 15th, and I think I'm gonna
yeah,
do that.
yeah, you always like finish that like halfway through. But if you
Yeah.
want, you could talk about the Mermaid musical, the horror movie, if you want,
Oh,
because I do know you were
yes.
very excited to find that. And of course, it's one that Tim and I both simultaneously picked. He's watched
Yeah.
it. It's on my watch list because I do my research. So it's
What a
on there. When
strange movie.
Yeah, when Tim said that, I'm like, the best no line. I'm gonna share you a little tidbit, go behind the scenes a little bit in our little text feed that we have going. Tim had the best line that had me cracking up literally all day. I would think of it and laugh. We were sitting there talking about it, and Tim's like, "Yeah, so I watched this mermaid musical, and there's, honestly, with mermaids, there's a lot of boobs in it and stuff." And our friend Ken, of course, who we mentioned a ton of times and has been on our show, he goes, "Wait a minute, would you guys like search this?" And Tim's like, "We're talking about mermaid boobs here. Does it matter how we got there?" And I've been laughing at that literally all day. So thank you, Tim.
Yeah, this one, man, it's such a weird movie. It's called The Lure. I think it's from Poland. At least it's set in
I believe,
Poland.
yeah, it's on Max, so everyone can see it that
Yeah,
has
it's on
Max.
Max. It was from 2015. I've seen the cover forever. I've seen the cover's very striking.
Yep.
So I've seen, and I love horror mermaid stuff. Like I love mermaids being twisted into horror. Like I will always love that.
It's a cool subgenre, honestly,
Yeah,
because mermaids are usually like, most people think, oh, Little Mermaid, Ariel, oh, singing crabs. No, but like the mermaid horror genre is way bigger than you think, and it's
yeah,
actually pretty solid movies come out of it.
yeah. So I'd seen this forever, and I was like, I'm surprised I haven't watched this, but I I picked it for the hard challenge because it's set in 1980s Warsaw or Poland or maybe it's Warsaw, maybe or somewhere in Poland. And so I was like, well, that's perfect. I've been wanting to watch this movie, and it's set in the 80s, and that's great. What I was not expecting that it was a musical mermaid stripper movie, which I did not know existed.
That's a
Uh,
very, very small subgenre,
very,
by the
very
way.
small subgenre. It's I will say, I will warn you, there's a lot of nudity in this movie. I did not watch it for that reason. I did not go into it expecting the amount of nudity in this movie, so this is not one to watch around the kids. But it's very interesting. Woman director, which was amazing, brings like this really interesting, sensual, fable type quality to this movie, but at the same time, it's got that weird, gritty 80s, dance music type vibe to it.
And it's kind of
It's
recent, right? It was just takes place in the 80s, which of
Yeah,
course gets that objective for the horror challenge. But I think
yeah.
it was like made like in the last 5 years or something,
It's
right?
2015. Yeah, it's a 2015 film, so
Oh,
it's a
okay.
modern.
So all right,
It's,
10 years. Okay,
yeah, it's a
about
modern
10 years.
film, but it's so interesting. Like there's a lot going on here, and it's one of those that kind of after I watch, but while I'm watching it, I'm going, what the hell is this? Like this is crazy. And then by the time I got to the end of it, I was like, this was actually really good. And then like long after the credits rolled, it's still like sticking in my mind certain aspects of it, where it's a very fascinating movie. This is why I love the horror challenges, because you go out on a limb and you watch these movies from like other countries that you might not have ever run across otherwise, and it's just some completely different perspective, which I absolutely love. It's not the Americanized, view of the world. It's just something completely off the wall uh, from my normal horror watching, and it just really makes you think. I just love when I run across movies like that. They're just coming completely out of left field, and this one definitely does that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and all the reviews are positive. I didn't really see many bad reviews on it.
No, it's a great movie. Again, like I said, I have to warn you, the nudity in it is borderline. I would almost say borderline excessive.
Also, where do mermaids shop for tops? I mean, I
I
don't know if
know.
they could really like swim into like H&M.
There's a shortage on coconut shells.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, yeah, like that's
or
seasonal. So
seashells or whatever they
yeah, if the
use.
seashell, if you swam in at the wrong time, like in the fall, like you're not getting a seashell bra for a mermaid.
No,
You're like out of luck. You got to find it like
no,
on clearance, maybe if you're
they've already
lucky.
moved on to the sweaters. I mean, you just can't find them
Yeah,
anymore.
and mermaids just I don't think they could deal with sweaters because then when
Yeah,
they go back under the water, they got to kind of get wet,
then
and
the
then they're gonna
sweater
just
shrinks. It's
you
a
don't
big
want like
thing.
knit like stuff sticking to your body. Yeah, I know. That's like. By the way, Tim and I will go into that later on. We do have a mermaid shopping
Yes.
episode planned down the road. No, I'm only kidding.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I figured Tim needed to talk about that though
Yeah,
because I know you were
it
like
was
raving about
bizarre.
it, and I couldn't wait to watch it. I'm trying to watch things strategically where I think like I have a whole list of my watches so to cover all the objectives, but I what I do is, and here's a little tidbit for you guys still struggling, maybe perhaps. I tend to watch movies where there could be a potential for to grab other things first
Mm-hmm.
where I'm like, I don't know for sure, but like some of them, like there's movies where I thought I started with 3 objectives, ended up with 5 or 6, and then because the order I watched it. So yeah, but
Yeah, definitely.
but anyway, yeah. So I before we get into a cool thing with about the upcoming haunt I'm gonna go to visit, figure I'll go through Terrifier 3 because that is the talk of the world essentially now. It's not even like just among the horror communities. We'll get into that in a bit, but so Julie and I had bought the tickets as soon as they went on sale, so I knew this night was coming, and we decided to make it a whole spooky night. So there is a cool place that I think I mentioned on a previous show called Mini Boss. It's a barcade, which are popping up all over now, and I love barcades. Mostly they have this
I did
really good
too.
80s theme, and like I sent pictures to like Tim and our text feed about like they have this really cool wall of like this 80s picture of a little kid like sitting there, and it's like all his thoughts, and it's like every 80s reference you could imagine. It's like
Oh,
fun to
that's
find.
cool.
Yeah, so and I think I should. If you look on Instagram now when you're listening to this, you'll see all my pictures from this. So what they do each year is they have pop-ups twice a year for sure. One is the Halloween one. They call it Nightmare on Second Street because it's on Second Street in San Jose, and they have one. I think Miracle on Second Street for their Christmas one, which I went to last year. I missed the Halloween one because I didn't catch it. I didn't discover the place until the last weekend of it. And we just were coming back from LA, and we were so tired. It was the last night of it. I'm like, there's no way I can swing this tonight. So I said, but it's on my point next year. So we went actually, I think it was like the third night it opened. And on Thursday night, what's even great is all the cool video games has free play mode on
Oh,
Thursday night.
cool.
Yeah. So they have cool seasonal drinks. They have cool foods, and they literally shut down for like 3 days to prep this place. And they put go look on our Instagram. I'm not going to go through details of everything I spotted there, but this place is awesome. They have amazing drinks. They have a great beer selection if you're just into beer. They have cool spooky drinks they make. They even make like a custom printed, like full on plastic menu each year for all their spooky drinks, which I did post also on there. And it's one of my favorite places to go. I've been there a bunch of times already, just on random nights. They have a room that's just like pinball. If you are a tiki mug fan, they literally have tiki mugs for every season, and they have like hundreds of them for each drink. Like, so if you got this drink that comes in the ghost tiki mug, you're not getting short staffed like, oh, I'm short or stiffed or anything like, oh my God, they ran out of. No, they have like hundreds of every kind of tiki mug for you to enjoy. And it's a 80s fan pop culture dream to begin with. But then when they add in the haunted element of it, which you've probably seen, if you've seen on our Instagram, I took a picture of like everything I could. They must have thought I was crazy. They must have took like 30 pictures. It was so cool. And it was the perfect way to like start off our Terrifier 3 spooky night, spooky date night, basically, Julie and I. So then we went, and of course, after that, we went and saw Terrifier 3. And I'm going to give a non-spoiler review, of course, because Tim has not got to see it yet, but he should see it this week. So as you know, I mean, we've discussed Terrifier 2 in the past and the franchise, and I was always a fan. As like as much as I loved Terrifier 2 and I loved everything it did, I was always a fan of the original first. Terrifier 3 had the reaction that a lot of people have for Terrifier 2. Like, I love Terrifier 2, of course, but like Terrifier 3 just blew me away. Like, maybe it's because I saw it in the theater versus seeing it at home. We were in a small theater, but it was filled, completely filled, and it was like, but it was really cool because like you could hear like gasps and reactions and stuff, just enough of things to happen. And let me tell you, like it's Damien Leone, who we've met before. Of course, we've had David Howard Thornton on. We met him back in the day, and we were actually, like Tim and I like to say, we were at the literally drinking in a bar with Damien Leone as he was talking to Chris Jericho about and what they had plans for T2. So I always think back to that moment as one of the funnest moments that we've had on a podcast. But anyway, but Terrifier 3 to me just did it was amazing. And I love holiday horror to begin with, Christmas horror. And I tell you, Damien Leone found a way to make just reinvent. I think he's reinvented the slasher period, but now I think he's reinvented the Christmas slasher because he somehow managed to have the most gory, depraved sequences, but also get the feeling of Christmas surrounding it somehow. And I don't know how he did it. I honestly don't know how he did it. Everyone was so good at it. Lauren Lavera, who is a scream queen extraordinaire, and I can't say enough about her. And when you see the movie, you'll see her character develop properly based on what she had. And one of the biggest criticisms, I think, when you have a recurring character from a slasher is, and I saw that someone worded it perfectly. They're like, you know what? It's so refreshing to see a character really carry the events of the previous film onto the next one. And, so many times, and they said, so many times you see the person, every one of her friends is killed and she barely escaped. And next movie, and which takes place 2 weeks later, she's fine.
She's good.
This movie takes place 5 years later. One of the closest ones I can remember on my top of my head where someone did a good job of representing that was Scout Taylor Compton in the much maligned Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie, but she did an amazing job of showing the trauma. But Lauren Lavera, as much as you love her in the second one, she takes it to a level that I don't know how she does it. And Elliot Fulman is incredible in this. The David Howard Thornton, I mean, it's he's as Art the Clown. Art the Clown is just as arty as ever. It's he's everything you want to see. One of the things that I see a lot of people talking about is, and not to get into too many details to remove spoilers, but Samantha Scafidi returns as a Terrifier veteran. If anyone that knows, you'll know who she plays. I'm just going to leave it as she doesn't get enough credit also for her role in this. There's some new characters in it that do an amazing job. Just overall, you're just I tweeted this out, and I'm proud of this statement of myself. I said, Damien Leone basically took the slasher to a place that horror fans probably only could see in their dreams, And the fact that it is the number one movie in the country, where there are some big movies out there right now. It destroyed the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, which I thought he was kind of box office gold. The fact that this movie on a $2 million budget has made, now they just announced it later this afternoon, over $21 million in 4 days.
Oh my gosh,
and
that's awesome.
My jaw dropped this morning. I'm literally watching CBS News, and all of a sudden I see clips of Terrifier 3, and they're saying, and the number one movie this week, Terrifier 3, as if it was no big deal. I'm like, oh my God, is horror back better than ever right now? Are we living in an age where we're going to tell our kids and grandkids the year ago goes, trust me, 2024 was a mecca of horror. There's so many cool things. And the number one movie at one point was Terrifier 3, this little kind of independent franchise that has just exploded. I mean, how could you not warm your heart as a horror fan to see something like that, right?
Well, the struggle I'm having to get to see this movie is, normally I would take Anna to go see any horror movie, but I don't think I'm ready for her to see this level of violence.
This is pretty violent. Yeah, this is gory.
I did show her the first Terrifier, but I'm now even having second thoughts about even showing her Terrifier 2, and I'm hoping we kind of just drop it until she's a little older. So that's been my biggest challenge, because Olivia doesn't care about going to see that, and so I would really pretty much just have to go by myself, and it's hard for me to just get away and do that without a plan. So I know it's coming to I think it's coming to Blu-ray and streaming very quickly. Like I think it's going
Yeah,
to
I think
be
like
in
December, the
December.
first week of December already.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they're getting it out for Christmas. So it may be, unfortunately, that may be the only time I get to see it, but we'll see. I do have busy weekends in October with parties, and we're going out of town to see my dad again. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
But I am
if
dying
part
to
of me
see it.
hopes you get to somehow see it. Well, remember, just because Blu-rays then, it might come out on streaming like 3 to 4 weeks before. You could just
True.
rent it.
Yeah, true.
So
Yeah.
you could rent it. Because but like I'll tell you, like I want to go back in the theater to see it. It's got one of the catchiest like little Christmas Art the Clown themed songs in it too, that like you were gonna be sitting there singing in your head. It's just I'm so happy. You know what? It's like that the people that just made this movie, Damien and his crew and all the cast in it, like they were taking a risk as much as horror fans loved it, but for it to make like national news, that's like amazing. It's like who would have thought? Like I still remember it was a Sunday afternoon, late evening, when all of a sudden when Tim texted me and he says, "Have you seen this movie Terrifier? Because everyone's been talking about it lately, like in the horror things. I've heard about it. It's good." And I'm like, "Oh no, I didn't hear about it. Let me watch it." And I watched it at night and was hooked from the middle. I never thought like literally like how many years later that like I'd literally be going to see it like the preview night in the movie theater, a third entry, and then having it win the box office. I mean, that's just
Well, it's neat because we grew up. Obviously, we were around for the birth of the big icons like Freddie and Jason, but
yeah,
we were young, and I don't think at the time we didn't probably really appreciate what was going on. Now, as an
yeah,
adult, seeing a horror icon being born in front of your
yeah,
very eyes, that's cool. That's really cool as a horror fan to see, because that
yeah.
doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't have. And I mean, and we've had some big horror, like I mean, icons that just have not caught on the way this has. Like you see little kids dressed as Art the Clown. Like I'm like, how do they even know who that is? It's like, how do they know who that is? He's a guy that like rips people apart.
I guess you could argue Ghostface, but to me that doesn't really count. I've never really just counted Ghostface because it's always different
It's a
people.
different person every time
Yeah,
too.
and then I
It's
guess you could count Jigsaw would probably be the most,
right.
maybe.
That's possibly. But again, then that's like, Jigsaw is like, he's a weird character because like, as good as Tobin Bell is, I mean, he's like iconic
And
as
that's not really a
John
slat.
Kramer. It's not the same,
No,
he's
it's
not
not
like a slasher that walks
Asher.
or
Yeah,
kind of person. Even Art the Clown is like reinvented the slasher. Like he uses guns, he uses
yeah.
like crazy things. And in this movie he uses things I didn't even know existed, So I mean it's just I just can't wait till you see it.
So Brian, you had we had an interview scheduled with John from the Terror on the Creek haunt. Unfortunately, we were hitting this right during haunt season. John's incredibly busy
Yeah, he's running 2 haunts, remember. He's got 2 haunts.
during haunt season, so we couldn't get the actual audio interview scheduled. But what Brian came up with like a pretty brilliant idea is he sent John the questions and John responded so that we can give you kind of a virtual interview here
Yeah,
of what you would have heard and be able to promote the haunt, which is what our goal was all along. So
yeah.
Brian, why don't you take it away? How are we going to do that? One of I guess one of us could ask the questions and one of us could answer.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and,
but
well, first, I'll give the basics. So he basically actually invited us to go to the haunt. So I'm gonna be going next, at this recording session is gonna be the weekend of the 26th, last weekend before Halloween. Julie and I are gonna head down there to check this out. But I'll give you the basic facts of the haunt. So it's Sunday to Wednesday, 7 PM to 10 PM. And it's open now, and it goes through all the way to November 2nd. So even if you miss it before Halloween, you can actually catch it a couple days after. Thursdays it's open from 7 to 11, and Fridays it's 7 to midnight. And actually on Halloween itself, it's 7 to 11:30. So they stay open a little later on
and where
Halloween.
what town is this
Yeah,
in?
so
Where is it?
it's in Winters, California. It's just a little bit outside Sacramento. So it's about, for me, I think here it's about an hour and 45 minutes. And what's great is it's attached to which could have been more civil gore, the Green River Brewing and Taproom, which is a
Oh
self-pour tap
wow,
room and restaurant. You ever been to one of those self-pour tap rooms? Those are
yeah,
fun. You basically
yeah,
get a little card, and you just go in, you sample all the beers and stuff.
yeah.
And the address for anyone interested is 4513 Putah Creek Road in Winters, California, 95694. We'll put the links in the show notes, but just you wanted to go, it's https / terror on the creek one word.com. And if you want to check out the brewery, it's the same thing, but greenrivertaproom.net. And so the haunt costs about $35 to $45 depending on the day and time you go. So I'm really looking forward to it because he basically gave me access. He's told me I can record my walkthrough on it. So, and I'm gonna have Julie record me, and I'm gonna record the haunt. So I'm gonna edit it together, make something really cool. We're not gonna have that obviously until after the fact. So if you think it's really cool and you're like, damn, I should have went. Well, now you gotta wait till next year by the time this releases because John did ask if we could show the video after.
Yeah.
No problem. But we did want to promote it beforehand. I guess if you want to do it this way, Tim, if you want to you want to answer the questions, I'll just answer kind of John's answers
Okay.
that he wrote us. Because I've been chatting with him, so I kind of can can elaborate a little bit on his answer.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll be asking the questions, and the answers you're gonna get are what John responded. So the first one here was, before we get into specifics, why don't you give our listeners a brief bio and how you got into the haunt business?
So he's basically, according to his answer, he's been in the haunt industry for 13 years, basically. And he's done all those with Terror in the Night Halloween Productions, and basically he said he loves every second of it. And that runs 2 haunts. It's also a cemeterium, which is, think about another, like an hour in between, which we'll get to later as kind of one of his challenges that he has to run these 2 haunts. But yeah, so he basically been doing it for 13 years, and he basically loves all of it with the same company. So, I mean, obviously that's a labor of love. If you're running something for that long,
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
So Brian asked, that he was going to experience the haunt at the end of the month, which is a little bit on the news side. But before he got into that, he wanted to ask about the long-running cemeterium haunt that Brian just referred to.
Yeah, so that one has been around, he says, from 2002. And it started as a home haunt, which I find more and more I hear that lately. These big haunts, they start as these little tiny home haunts.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, when I say tiny home haunts, I only mean by scope of actual size, because one of our friends, Andy, remember, he does that amazing haunt in where he lives, and it's just in his house, but it's actually incredibly detailed, and he has a big crowd each year. But so basically, it was growing. It started to slowly grow into like a charity haunt, and then a school haunt, and then since 2011, it became one of the biggest professional haunts in the Sacramento, California area, which is cool. Yeah, so I definitely need to check. I was going to try and check out both, but it's too far, and it's just the timing is just not going to work. So I decided to do this newer one as my choice when he gave him to me. So.
So next time we asked was, with running a haunt for 24 years, how did John keep things fresh?
Yeah, so he wrote with all the Terror in the Creek haunts, he goes, they strive to change and adjust yearly to keep everything looking a little different. And for the customers that, return, it kind of enhances their experience, which makes sense. If you like something, and you just want to tweak it a little bit, is one thing, but it's kind of nice that they always keep that as a conscious effort to keep it fresh. So the repeated guest kind of gets something new, at least a couple of things new every year.
Yeah, that Hickory Grove Haunted Trail is something I've noticed every year, because we typically go every year, but I have noticed that even though there's some elements that are the same, there's always enough different stuff there that, it doesn't feel like I'm just rehashing the same haunt I did last year, which I always appreciate. But I also appreciate that there are some elements that are the same year after year, so that since I'm a returning customer, it kind of goes, oh yeah, I love this part kind of thing, So it's nice to have that balance between old stuff for the old fans, but also new stuff, so that they're not bored with going through the same one again. That's pretty cool.
And that's not something that just local haunts do, because from what I understand, this is my first year going to Scary Farm, which I'm going to be going to, and one of our friends of the show, Jeff Tucker, actually, he did his opening thing, and they do a couple of houses that are repeats each year, but they do a little bit of little tweaks to it. And he even says, he goes, okay, this is the final year of this house, or this is a recurring from last year. It was so popular, kind of thing. So obviously that is a strategy that pays off, because if you got something like Scary Farm doing that, I mean, and plus, horror fans like us, we can watch the same movie 50 times over. Why wouldn't we see the same haunt over and over again? And also, I know so many times I've gone through a haunt, and I've someone has said, "Oh, did you see that part?" And I'm like, "No, I missed it." And it's that's why these frequent fear passes and And express passes unlimited exists because sometimes you need to go through the house a couple of times to catch everything.
And sometimes you're just in the wrong part of the line to catch the scare, And
True. Yeah. They try and rush you in and conga line you in sometimes. So sometimes you don't get that scare or it's behind you.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
or if you're with my wife, Julie, they won't scare you at all
They
because
won't scare you at all.
they just come out and yeah.
So Brian asked that, of course, he was going to check out Terror on the Creek firsthand at the end of October, and then asked John, without spoilers, what could he tell us about the Terror on the Creek haunt and what listeners could expect to see if they went through this haunt.
Yeah, so he gave the perfect answer to not give a spoiler, but get me really excited for this. So here's his exact words. He wrote, Terror in the Creek is a fully immersive outdoor haunted house, which I love, by the way. I love outdoor haunted house. It's located in a forest cut off by a creek, so you'll never know what's lurking in the dark.
Oh, man,
So
that
that's
sounds like the Hickory Grove Haunted Trail, man. I
yeah,
love
that's why
it.
I'm excited because outdoor haunts don't get enough credit sometimes because
Yeah.
sometimes being outside gives you that element because it's like when you're in a house, you kind of know you're like, okay, I'm going into a house. I know things are going to jump out at me. Da, 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 da. But when you're outside and things come out at you, you don't know where they're going to come out. You have no kind of bearings, especially if you're in an area you're not familiar with. You have no idea where you're going. So I like, remember that one we loved at Busch Gardens where it was like outside and people just
Yeah.
wandering through the cemetery and how cool that was?
Well, it also gives the scare actors the freedom to run up ahead and like they can
That
get
too.
multiple scares, that kind of stuff, which they can't do in a conga line house. So
Yeah, I
that's,
mean, you have your boo doors and all those things and stuff, but like again, it's like, yeah, when you're in a conga house, you get people like cramming in and people stop and it sometimes ruins it for the person behind you. Not intentionally, it just happens. It's what
yeah.
happens.
So then we asked, we're huge fans of haunts in general. So what can you tell us about your preparation process each year for the haunts?
So yeah, I kind of expected an answer kind of like that's this early based on like, Emily told us when she used to do her parties, like she starts like early. And then so he said too, he goes, they meticulously plan for everything starting in January. So like
Wow.
as soon as the new year hits, they're already working on like what's coming in October, which is awesome. It says, so they're constantly looking to make improvements. And they said all the pneumatic props you see, they create on site, which is
Oh,
cool.
that's cool.
Yeah. So that must be fun on its own. I mean, they said the only difficulty that they face really is the distance, like I said earlier, between the two haunts because it's driving close to 100 miles round trip to each haunted house. So, and it's a relatively small company. They're running these two major haunts. So, but he said he did make sure he wrote, he goes, it makes it worth it, which I'm super excited to see this because I basically saw a little bit of clips online, from what their website shows. And it looks like I'm going to have a fun time on this.
Yeah, nice. So then the next question was, so of course, one of the strengths of any haunt is the scare actors. What are some of the things you look for and what do you think makes a good scare actor?
Well, I think his answer here is like exactly what you would want to hear. And he goes, passion and positive vibes mostly. And they look for people eager to learn and love Halloween. And I
Yes.
think every person that we've talked to that's done scare acting or have been part of this has said something similar. And that's why I think that makes the best haunts. Like, remember we talked to Cassie? She was a scare actor and she did the makeup. And I don't know many people that love Halloween as much as her, remember? And, so
Yeah.
it's like, I think if you love the holiday, you already know you're going to just get someone like that's going to just love to scare people and love to just envelop themselves in the whole experience.
Yeah, I've never been a scare actor, but the closest thing I've come to it is I would scare people on my dad's haunted trail when he would do the haunted hayride at his place. So I would hide in the woods, and that was a lot of fun. But this year, he's not doing the entire haunted big hayride. But what he does have is he has a cemetery out in the woods.
Oh,
So
cool.
he is gonna drive the tractor out there to the cemetery and let people look around. Well, in the cemetery this year, he created these really cool, like robed Grim Reaper looking figures. You can't see under the hoods. They look exactly like the Dementors from Harry Potter. That's what they look
Oh,
like.
that's awesome.
And he's got like 5 of them standing up in the cemetery. And he told me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cloak exactly like those and have you stand out there motionless among them and
Oh,
pull
that's
the old
awesome.
switcheroo. And when people just think they're all props, I can jump out and scare them. So I'm going to get to do that this year, which is going to be fun.
I love that effect with you'll do. Remember, it was like that circus haunt we did. I think it was Busch Gardens too, where they had the circus thing where there was a room of all the mannequin looking things, and you
Yeah.
knew
Oh my gosh.
one was going to come
real.
alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a simple effect, but it works every time.
Every
Even if
time.
you don't even if you alternate and don't move, people are so freaked out walking through because you
Yeah.
expect one of those to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way,
That's a great.
that's one of the dreams I have. I would love, like, I love that John invited us to go check this haunt out. So thanks again, John, for this. But I would love for a haunt to also invite Tim and I one day to do like a special, like, one night only of scare actors in there. I
That
think
would be
that'd be
so
kind of
much
fun.
fun. Yeah.
You would
Uh,
fly out for that, and I'd fly into you
oh
for
yeah,
that
for
because I think
sure,
that'd
for
be worth it.
sure. The
Yeah.
next question was, were there any particular haunts that inspired you? And also, was there a favorite year with your own haunts that stood out?
So this answer I did not expect. I figured he was like a huge haunt fan. He goes, he'd say there's no other haunts because before he did this, he'd never been to a haunted house,
Oh my
which is
gosh,
crazy to
that's
think because
crazy.
this house is so popular. I've seen like when he first contacted me, I watched some like YouTube clips of them on the news and talking about it, and you would think they were like haunt fans since birth, basically. But he said his two favorite years were 2021 and 2017. He said because there were times where they had some of the best crews and workers and the longest schedules. So that's kind of cool.
Very cool. The next one up, the last question here was, now we want to give you a chance to give your big promo for the haunts and let everyone know where they can find out more about them and for tickets. So this was
Yeah,
his
so I'm
answer to
gonna
that.
since we gave that information up there already, I'm just gonna do the verbatim of what he said. And he wrote, "Cemeterium and Terror on the Creek come from the minds of terror in the night Halloween productions we strive to create every year as unique as the last and always thrive to keep things fresh. We're an outdoor haunted house company that thrives to pull your deepest, darkest fears out and make you face them." So, I mean, I don't know what more you could say that would get you excited for this haunt because I'm like already like I've been waiting for this. I cannot wait. I mean, I have Scary Farm in between, but like I'm like I can't. I wish this was like tonight. I would go right away because you could just tell because the fact that he reached out to us and through our chats between him, you could like we've been trying to schedule the interview, but he's so dedicated. He's like literally like there was one time where we were supposed to have him on and he texted. He's like, "I'm still stuck at the haunt," and I'm like, you know what? I can respect that. How could we?
Yeah,
You're you're running two simultaneously haunts, and it's like the end of September, about to hit October. You know what? Like, I'm almost glad you did that because, like, that just shows that your dedication to these things. And
yeah.
I know I'm gonna have an awesome time.
And you never know, we might get him back on next year.
Yeah, I think next year we'll get him on way early. We'll plan this better, and get him on really early when he's like just starting to do it. Like we should have had him on like right that first week when he contacted us, but
Yeah.
we had so many things going on and it was travel and everything. But what I think I'm gonna do, so what I'm gonna do is like I said, we're gonna have this recorded. He gave me permission to record through. I got my GoPro, so I'm all excited about that because I'm loving this thing. So we're gonna try and get as much footage as possible through this, and I'm gonna edit up something nice. So right after Halloween and the haunt closes, because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, we're gonna release this video, and hopefully it'll whet your appetite. So you put this haunt on your calendar next year. Once again, though, if you want to look, you look it up on Instagram, Terror on the Creek, on Instagram, and I think it'll link you also to Cemeterium. And then you could look up that Green River Taproom, which I think Julie's most excited about that, honestly, that part, because,
Yeah.
we love our beer. So we're going to probably make sure we go there a couple hours early so we can go check out, get some dinner. Green River Taproom, which has some really good food, it looks like, too. Breweries really have good food, I have to say. Most breweries have
Yeah.
really good food. So we're going to do that, have a couple of beers, and make sure we get to go through. I'm going to try and get some cool footage of this haunt, and I can't wait to tell everyone about it because just by the little chats with John, I could tell how dedicated he is and how much. And from the clips I saw on the news, they love to do this haunt. And to me, that's usually the best kind of haunt you get when you know the people like are dedicated into like giving their guests like a really scary experience. You see that like those like that like I watched the documentary today on it, the House that October Built, the original
Yeah.
documentary
Yeah.
and stuff, their little interviews. And I know it's kind of like pseudo doc, towards the end, but still, it's like, just some of the people they interview, you can tell it's like, it was just getting me so excited. I'm like, I just love freaking haunt season. It's so
Yeah.
fun.
It is so
It's
fun.
like, that's why it's like, it was funny. I was talking to, Allie from Spooky Chicks, who've become really, really good friends with us, Allie and Emma. And we were just talking about how there's just too many things to do in October these days because everyone is doing something. It's like we said we need like October to be at least like 61 days instead
Yeah.
of 31 or like even more because we're basically we been sharing each other with like cool like events in the area, and I'm like, there's like 50 things I want to do. And Tim and I are really talking about possibly somehow getting together, him flying out here and us hitting all the major, because living in California, I could literally hit Scary Farm, Halloween Horror Nights, Hollow Scream, because they do it at SeaWorld, and Fright Fest, because there's a couple of Six Flags near me. So, like, I mean, like, moving out to California, like, in terms of for haunt reasons, has been incredible.
That's the only bummer about living here. Like, there's no haunts in Wilmington. There's nothing even close. I mean, like, you got to drive at least an hour, hour and a half to get to any kind of local haunt. And I don't know. They used to have haunts here, and most of them have moved. And I don't know. It's just it feels like to me there's not as much to do around here for Halloween as maybe there was in the past, especially from a haunt perspective. They still have the little ghost tours and stuff, but they have those all the time.
You do have that cool haunted bar crawl that I did, that Julie and I did, remember, for Kev's wedding. That was really cool.
But they do those all year, so they don't have like specifically Halloween as much as I would like. But it's all good because we end up going to my dad's, and we do the haunted.
You got like the ultimate thing in Carol. So. Well, and you know, it's funny. The first haunted house I ever went through was actually when I lived in California the first time. They had this company called Gyro's haunted house. And I remember the first one I ever went to was in an old abandoned mall like that. And they took the whole like one section. So it was like you went upstairs, you went up things.
That's cool.
And yeah, I still remember it was like, that's when I got obsessed with actually the haunts, because it was the first one I ever went to. I never saw anything like it before. And I still remember one of the coolest sequences was they had you go into this room and they kind of close you in the room. And it's like, kind of like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre ripoff thing, because I don't think they had the rights to anything. And this woman was on this slab and she's screaming. It's like, and all of a sudden you hear this chainsaw go, "Arr." And so everyone's watching the door that's like so blatantly right in front of you. You think he's going to go there, but instead there's a little boo panel a little close to the floor, and this chainsaw comes out and taps someone on the leg.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was like, oh my God. And from that moment, I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. I want these ever. And that was before I knew Halloween Horror Nights existed, because I wasn't like, the internet wasn't what it was. So you didn't know these things. You had to kind of really be aware of your things. And I just remember the radio station just announced this gyro thing. So I'm like, I got to go try this. Or the newspaper, I think I saw it in.
That's when you had to actually read the newspaper.
Yeah. So, sorry.
That's awesome.
So I'm like, oh man. So I'm like, I think back to it and I'm like, that was my first haunt. And it was so cool because you like went upstairs, down. That was in this like this weird, like decayed mall. So it already had a cool setting, so it's like
back in the 80s, again, this tells you how long ago this was. So we have an old plantation house called Poplar Grove Plantation, which is not too far.
Did you tell me about this before? That sounds familiar, Poplar Grove.
Yeah, Poplar Grove. They still do a Halloween festival there, but they used to have a haunt there. I don't think they even do the haunt anymore, which is too bad. But for years, they actually had the haunted house in the actual plantation house, like
oh my God,
the 1800s plantation house.
And that's sort of like a haunted atmosphere from a lot of people. They say anyway. These
supposedly it's haunted anyway. They have ghost tours and stuff there.
Yeah.
In fact, what they replaced the haunt with, and I have been meaning to do this at some point. They do but it always sells out. They do a ghost tour there, like not a ghost tour, like a ghost investigation, like an actual paranormal investigation. And they open up for very small groups of like 10, I think. And people go in there with the equipment and everything. And I've always wanted to do it, but it's very pricey and it always sells out. So one of these days I'm going to get to it. But yeah, they had the haunt actually run through the house. Obviously, they stopped it after a few years because people were damaging it or whatever. And then they moved it out to an old barn, which was really cool. So we used to have the haunt go to the barn. I had some great experiences with that one, but they haven't run the haunted houses in probably 10 years now. They don't do it anymore, which is kind of a shame. But
Tim, you could probably, not that like we're like the biggest podcast in the world, because I know we're not, but I'm sure if you contact them and say, hey, look, I want to discuss this on our podcast, what can you do for us? Maybe they give you at least a discount or something.
Yeah, I wouldn't hurt to ask, right? Yeah, definitely.
Oh, and we need to get Cone on, because Cone's daughter did that Eastern State Penitentiary haunt, which is supposedly like legendary. And apparently she gave the permission to do like the full, like you can grab me kind of thing stuff. So
Oh,
Cohn
that's
kind of like
awesome.
briefly talked about it, but we need to have him come on, and maybe even Isabel be able to come on and like give her like firsthand appearance. Because there's like I want to just like like even if we don't get like a traditional episode in October, I don't care if it's like all about haunts and fun stuff
Oh
because this is
yeah,
our
definitely.
time. This is our
Yeah,
month.
yeah,
Every
for
listener
sure.
that's going to listen to this will understand that.
Yeah, but we're haunt fanatics.
Yeah.
Um, so we're gonna wrap up this episode with our
Yep.
interview with Kenneth Trujillo, and again, so excited he came on. A totally really cool guy. I appreciate him coming on. Wish him all the best in his career, and I think you guys are gonna absolutely love this interview. Definitely check out "I'll Never Leave You Alone" coming out Friday. It is incredible. And you'll kind of get hints of what we're talking about when you hear the interview, but no spoilers, so don't worry about that. We'll leave you with that, and we'll see you guys here next week.
Yeah.
Hey guys, so we recently checked out a screener for a new film called "I'll Never Leave You Alone," and here to chat with us about it is the star Kenneth Trujillo. Did I get that
Yeah,
somewhat close?
you got it. You
All
got
right.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim's notorious for mispronouncing, so it's like a kind of a running joke.
I get so nervous about pronouncing the more complex names, but anyway, welcome to the show. We love the movie. Before we get into the movie, though, which we're definitely going to talk about, I did want to give our listeners a chance to learn a little bit about you. Can you give us a little bit of a kind of a career overview?
Oh man, I've been acting now about 9 years. My acting journey started later in life for me. I started acting in the Southeast, actually in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then just by proxy of being in the Southeast, I got a lot of opportunities for network TV and feature films. And at the same time, being in Atlanta and the independent film scene that is kind of just being more and more nurtured every day now gave me the opportunity to work on independent projects and continue to grow as an artist. So, yeah, it's been about 9 years. Every year, it's just fortunate to say bigger projects, more interesting projects, and being able to travel with what I'm doing has been a blessing. So that's kind of my journey in a nutshell. It started out with these bit parts, these small co-star roles, and then from there grew into guest star roles, now television, and then had some pretty big projects this past year. So it's been great.
Yeah, I've seen you're in a ton of stuff. I was looking at your IMDb, and my dad actually lives in Charlotte. I'm in Wilmington, so I'm very familiar with the film industry here, which is starting to come back a little bit now, finally. So,
Yeah.
so especially with the horror, it seems like it's been quite a mecca for horror films recently. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool to see it coming back to the Carolinas.
Yeah, and Tim, I'm surprised he didn't say this, but I don't know how much of a horror fan you are, but he's basically in his family has a little bit of connection to the legendary Maximum Overdrive horror film there.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, our listeners have heard this, but a billion times. But my granddad owned the diner that was in the end of Maximum Overdrive, where the kid blew up the drive-through. So when I was about 8 years old, I was out there watching them film that. Of course, at that time, I was too little to really know who anybody was, but apparently, I got to meet everybody and everything. So I wish I had was more of a horror fan back then. I would have appreciated it a little more. But
That's really awesome.
that's my one little bit of Wilmington film trivia connection there.
Really cool.
Yeah, so I would definitely want to get right into I'll Never Leave You Alone because first of all, like Tim said earlier, we absolutely love the film. It's really, really good. And what I love is the based on the just premise of it, it's already starts you off with an interesting set for the main plot. But what are some of the things that most attracted you to this project specifically?
DW and I knew each other. We'd kind of moved around each other before, and there hadn't been anything that had come along yet for us to be able to work on. And then he had told me about the project, and you know, people will see how impactful, how striking I would say the film is, and so that's what stood out for me right out of the gate. The first pass of the script, and then just the ability to work with DW and continue to develop what he had built on that script, and the dynamic that exists between myself and the character, the actress who plays my wife in the film. So to see that dynamic that was created when I first read the script made me interested in wanting to explore more in this world and why someone would put themselves in this type of situation.
Yeah, those sequences with with you. I mean, Tim and I are both married guys, so we know. They seem very authentic. You did a really good job, I think, bringing that across, that married life. With the stress of just, in this movie, it's a baby coming and a whole bunch of other stuff going on, and it's just, it's like I love when like something so like common can still seem so authentic. It's like I mean, every husband and wife will have bickering thing, but then there's those real moments, and you guys captured that perfectly.
Thank you, thank you. I really say it's a testament to Katerina's work, and it was great to work with her. It was great to have the opportunity to rehearse and to kind of continue to develop that relationship and have those conversations with DW and make sure that what we were coming to the table with was something really grounded, even though it's in this kind of supernatural kind of backdrop.
So, Kenneth, was there a particular experiences you drew from to get into the character of Richard, because he has a like really heavy backstory when you get into this movie?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll try to be as delicate as I can, so I don't give anything away. But the trauma that he experiences, I had ample amount of time to research people who have gone through traumas very similar to this and this tragedy and kind of the ripple effect that it has, and how deeply everyone is affected when they experience a life-changing traumatic event like this. So I had ample amount of time to kind of experience that and take it all in, and then be able to kind of use that to create a solid base of this experience. And then the other thing is, just growing up with parents, you ask them, hey, what was it like when you knew we were on our way? When maybe you didn't expect to have a kid and now his kid is on the way. What does that feel like? So even just the daily life of what it means to get ready to be a parent was something that I was able to draw on. And all because we had time. So that's always a blessing when you have that.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I think I read an article about that, and you had said that you did a lot of research. That's impressive, because sometimes you're on a tight budget where you're like, okay, we have like 6 days to film this, and we're starting like in 2 days, kind of thing. But and for a character, I think that has that like that backstory and the baggage that when we that's revealed over time, that's got to be tough to rush that. So that was kind of good that you guys had that time to get ready for that.
Yeah, it really was a blessing. I mean, it's the gift and the curse of sometimes making movies. It's like, you can't wait to make it, and all of a sudden, like, we're making it, and we got to move, and so you try and be as honest as possible, and invest the time to draw from real life experiences. And that was, again, starting from the base of the script that DW developed, and then along with having the time to work and do scene work with Katerina, and then have the individual time of where my character was coming from. So yeah, it was really a blessing.
So so in current day in this film, and I'm gonna try, obviously this is a not bit of a spoiler, because you find out pretty quick on this one, but so your current day character, he's mute, and acting is hard enough to portray emotion, let alone having to do it without dialogue. So, and which you nailed, by the way. You did an amazing job with your facial expressions and everything. Like, so how did you prepare for something like that, where you knew you had to portray so much heavy emotion without being able to like portray it verbally?
Well, I would first start out by saying that it started with, what would I have said if I could speak? And and the ability to think about what those thoughts were and what I wanted to say allowed me to kind of create that through my eyes, through my facial expression. And part of that came through the rehearsal process. Some part of that came through the study process. Part of that came from looking at great talents that have painted whole worlds with just a face. You know, one of my North Stars is James Gandolfini from The Sopranos. And,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
that they've talked about him before, you know, after he passed, the actor who played, I think, Johnny Sack, that actor, I forget his name, but he was talking about James Gandolfini's work, and he said he could tell you an entire scene with his eyes. So you think about that, and you think about where this guy is and where he's coming from and everything that he's experienced and the words that he doesn't have, if only. So it allowed for me to kind of operate from that.
It's interesting. I should probably take those lessons because I know a lot of people would rather have me just make a facial expression than the way I talk. As Tim will tell you, I could go on for hours. But yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. That's a great, yeah, because you really did such an amazing job. I mean, you're especially like there's just some things where you like I know you said that's how you went about it, and you could almost see your character saying stuff by just those facial expressions. So well done on that for sure.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you.
So, Kenneth, you already talked about. I wanted to give you a chance to talk about the rest of the cast. You already talked about Katerina, who was amazing in this. She really did an incredible job as your wife. And Christopher Genovese was like the closest thing we had to comic relief in this movie, which is in very short supply, I will have to say in this film. But he
Very
kind of
short
gave
supply,
he
yeah.
kind of gave a little bit of levity, I think, just because his character seems so compassionate and charming. So I just want to give you a chance to speak to his role.
Yeah, no, you know, I had some really wonderful castmates. I mean, Katerina, I can't say enough about, and then working with Chris was great. We only had a few days on the film. I knew a little bit about him before because he's a sketch comic and an improviser, and I had seen him in other short film projects, and you know, we had an opportunity to kind of talk about our scenes, and we had a good time doing it. He's a really funny guy. And so, yeah, just to have a few days on set with him was really wonderful. And then there's this actor named Pierce Lackey who plays basically the guy in the prison who gets me connected with the job. Basically,
He
my
was really
probation
good.
officer.
Yeah.
He was good.
Yeah, another actor that I had worked with before, and had the opportunity to kind of help bring into the fold. And these guys just, you know, were great dance partners, and it was good to have them. Yeah, and again, like Chris gives as much comic relief as you possibly can in such a dramatic picture, but it was great to work with them.
Yeah, he was good. It was funny too because like he basically in sequences he'd be like talking and answering for you, you know, and he had like that's like and it was actually kind of, you know, it was making me chuckle even though there's this still sense of dread going on throughout this movie that you find out, which kind of leads to my next question. And I have to say, I'm going to try and word this as best I can because this movie I kind of wish that we could like talk about it a couple of weeks from now when a lot more people have seen it because it's really
We'll
hard
do
to
that. We'll do
Yeah.
that after.
Okay, yeah. Well, you were as Tim and I will say already, you're always welcome back on the show anytime you want. So without to avoid spoilers, I'm going to say this there. How we need to bring up, I'm going to say it, that scene because there is a scene in here where I remember as I was watching it, I paused it, texted like Tim and made like a gif of a shocked face. I said, okay, this is me watching this movie now. So so how do you like without obviously I know this is difficult, but how do you prepare for such a tragic reveal like that without really, I guess, I guess the best,
No,
we'll give a
yeah,
spoiler warning, but, you know.
yeah, no. First things first. When I read it, I put the script down and I said, and I was like, I don't know if Katerina's gonna want to do this movie.
No blame her, yeah.
But no, it was it shocked me when I read it. I texted DW. We talked about it. I didn't know how it was going to feel on the day, how it was even going to look. I really didn't want to see it until it was time to shoot that scene. And yeah, you kind of don't. I don't. There's no real preparation, except for, having seen videos of people who have lost people traumatically and how they talk about that and what those initial moments felt like for them, the realization of these things. And so, yeah, that's the best way that I could kind of delicately walk a tightrope around, the scene. But you did as much as you could to understand what people would see and what DW was thinking and what he was feeling when he wrote that scene, to then be ready to attack it on the day. So that's kind of
No, actually, you did a great job of explaining that without having to give anything away.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because based on where your character starts at the very beginning of this film, you knew there was going to be some kind of this huge reveal. Totally did not expect the one that we got. Tell you that, based on where you were and your reaction. But it all makes sense too, and it was still like, as shocked as I was, I'm like, wow. And then the fact that like I'm like I said, I told you we're gonna say this 50 times, and then I'm like, man, is Kenneth killing it in this with what he's dealt with in this movie, and like I'm like, he is like, I don't even know, like it would make everything make sense basically once you find out what's going on and the way you're acting in it and your reactions to things. Yeah, it's just like incredible.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
always
you.
curious what the mood was like on set, because I've always heard other actors we've talked to on horror movies always say it's typically a lot of laughter and humor and stuff filming horror movies. But I was just curious on this kind of intense movie, what the general feeling
Hopefully
was
not
like
too
on
much
set.
laughter. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was always levity to start the day. When we got into the heavier scenes, everybody was kind of warned, like, hey, this is what we're doing next. And, kind of like act accordingly, because everybody involved with the scene, your emotions are super heightened. And, and the having to do some of these takes over again and having to reset, they did a great job of kind of commanding a set that was hyper aware of what we were about to do. But outside of that, I mean, yeah, I mean, I could say the same thing. I mean, the mornings were always fun. They grilled out a couple of times on set, so to break for lunch and kind of have that sense of levity, be out in the fresh air and, eat a grilled burger or something like that and just have a moment. Yeah. So yeah, a good bunch of people on the project. It was just great spirits, and that helped balance out all the weightiness of it all.
So this kind of leads talking about that scene kind of leads to that my next question, which is, what are some of your favorite reactions to the film?
I mean, it's been interesting to hear back from people who saw it internationally in the UK. I didn't get a chance to watch it over there. The response was great. DW went to Telluride, and he told me firsthand. He's like, "Hey, man, we had X amount of people walk out when this happened." And then, a couple other times it screened privately here in Atlanta. And just the moments of humor that were there, it was funny to just be in the presence of all these bodies collectively laughing at this one moment. And then other things where you're like, Jesus, you guys have no idea what's about to happen. So yeah.
I mean, that must have been fun for you watching it with an audience. Like, oh, I cannot wait to see what they say with this one.
I was sitting all the way in the back, and I was like, oh man, here it comes, and it was just to hear that, it's cool.
No, we'll kind of follow up on that. Is there anything that you hope audiences do take away from watching this movie?
I said this. Somebody else had asked me that, and I told DW when I first read it, I said, this movie's it's a fucked up love story.
Yeah.
I don't know if people will see it that way, and I certainly don't want to influence however you take it, however it lands. But when I read it, and the many times that I read it, and then in the doing of it, that's what it felt like. It felt like a really fucked up love story. And so yeah, we'll see, if people feel that way or not. But that's what I think.
Nice. So it's funny too, because my next question is very important, but it's kind of it's kind of funny now that we've just said all this, because I'm like, you know, on paper, this is basically, and if you read the synopsis, it's kind of like it's basically your essential like haunted house type of film. But to show how much depth this movie had and how many other themes it had in it, we haven't even touched on that yet, which is great. But what I was going to say is, so here's my important question. So where do you stand personally in terms of ghosts being real? Are you a believer or a skeptic?
Oh man, energy can neither be created nor destroyed, right? So everything goes everywhere. I've never personally experienced something supernatural. I have people in my life who said that they have experienced certain things. I take them at their word. It's not something that I invest a whole lot of time and energy into, but I also think that I might be a little bit reserved. If you said, "Hey, do you want to go to this house that 15 people got murdered in? I heard it was haunted." I might be like, I'll pass. But so yeah, I'm undecided.
So we're not going to see Kenneth on any Ghost Hunter shows anytime soon. Sounds like.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle too myself. And it's like, and I at one point lived, now I don't, but at one point, and Tim will tell you, I lived about like 8 minutes from the Amityville Horror House, the actual one, so.
Yeah.
So that was much better when I said I lived in Amityville for the podcast. Now that I moved out to the Bay Area in California, I don't have that cachet. Now I got to prove my horror stuff now. But there's enough out here that I could probably wrestle up that people know for horror. But yeah. So I'm kind of with you too. It's like I will believe anyone that tells me if they saw something paranormal. I'm like, absolutely, I believe you. Myself, the same with you. Kind of like I really haven't seen anything where I could say it, but I kind of like wouldn't mind if I saw.
Oh,
once.
you know what? That's actually a lie. I just remembered something that happened. I could tell you the story. I don't know.
Yeah, go for it.
So I have a friend who's also an actor, and him and I became close because we were rehearsing a scene for a play called a Bengal Tiger at the Baghdad Zoo. I don't know if you know the play, but it takes place overseas during the war in the Middle East. One of the soldiers starts to lose his mind. That was the scene that we were rehearsing. Like a couple of months after we had done it, he calls me up one day and he tells me, "Hey man, something crazy just happened," and he tells me the story about he was home in his living room, and he's got his dog is a Malinois, so super hyperactive, like a Belgian, German Shepherd, and all of a sudden his dog comes into the room, and he walks away, and he goes through the hallway, and he's at the door to his room. And he's just standing there in the doorway, looking into the room. And so he's like, what the hell is he doing? So he walks and he calls the dog over, and then the dog comes into the living room. And he's there in the living room, and then the dog gets agitated again. And the dog goes like behind where his flat screen was, like on where he had it on the table. And the dog's like over in the corner now, looking back out to the other corner of the living room. He's like, the heck is going on? So he's like, I don't know what's wrong. As the dog starts salivating, so he's like real anxious. So he calls his neighbor downstairs because those two dogs play together, and he's like, oh, maybe bring the other dog up and calm him. I don't know what's going on. So he calls his neighbor up. The neighbor brings the dog, and the dog is kind of chill for a little bit, and then again kind of back to this behavior, and he's looking at this one corner of the room. And I didn't believe him when he told me. He told me I was skeptical. And then, so he shows me on his phone. And so he wanted to take a video of what the dog was doing and where the dog was looking. And he pans his phone to the corner of the room. And just for a second, the screen goes like this. It like blurs for a second. So I was just like, yeah, I don't know. That's the story. But I saw that. I can't believe I forgot that. But yeah.
Oh my God, that freaked me out. Yeah. No, yeah, I'm convinced my dog sees ghosts too, because he'll just like, I mean, he's a schnauzer, so he kind of always has like, he's always so talkative too. But there's times he'll just be looking at something in the corner and be going, "Ruff," making a sound, and I'm like, oh God, what does he see now? It's, what is he looking at now? It's,
Yeah.
but yeah, I still think I'm like with you. Like I probably like maybe when I was a kid, probably there's probably some situations. It's just it's like I don't like. I know there's some people that seem to be just super sensitive, and they constantly talking about how the things they had, and I'm like, I kind of want to see like something that I could like a cool story to say, but I don't have one yet.
When you lived up there, did you ever get any sense or anything? Or like,
Oh, damn it.
yeah.
I mean, not really. Like by this point, it was the house. They had changed the look of the house a little bit. Like I drove Tim by it when he came to visit once.
Yeah,
I'm
that
like,
was
"All right,
cool.
you gotta come by and look at it." And the owners, it's funny when I was there during the time I was there, the owners switched already. The second batch of owners were way more understanding of the history, and they didn't mind like people having taking pictures. There used to be a sign there that would say like, this is private property. Please do not, kind of like the whatever, like do not stop here and everything.
Yeah.
But I think the newer owners, they would like decorate for the holidays and kind of make it like fun. Like they were into like the horror, so they knew, I think. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how could you buy that house and not be like into that kind of stuff? Like, I own that house. I have run a haunt every year. I'd say, come on in, like come walk through. I'm making some money off that thing.
Yeah,
That
for
that
sure.
goes by that house like sells for like $2 million every time it gets sold. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so I'm like, I'd be like, if I spent that much money, I need to get some of it back. I'm gonna make
For
a
sure.
walk-through haunt in there, but yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
So, Kenneth, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you if you have any other projects coming up that you're allowed to talk about.
I'm currently in production for a micro short dark comedy series that's up on YouTube right now. It's called Other Things. So that's
nice.
something that I'm kind of spearheading. And then there's another film that's been making the rounds. It is of the horror genre as well. I did it with a group of filmmakers from Tennessee. It's a writer director as well. His name is Chad Cunningham, and the film is called Catacombs, and it's about a corrections officer and being trapped in that space, and kind of a supernatural element to it as well. So that's
nice.
actually making the festival rounds, and we'll see where it ends up landing.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice. So finally, of course, we'll go back real quick to I Will Never Leave You Alone. Where can our listeners check this out? Because I believe it comes out as of today. The day we're recording, it comes out this Friday, I believe, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, it's going to be the 18th. Select cities. I think you can check the Dark Sky Film Production website as to where those select cities are, and then it'll be on demand. As far as I know, it should be available on all platforms. I saw it right now for pre-order up on Apple, so anyone who
nice.
wants to check it out and pre-order before the 18th can do that.
Yeah, that's great. I forgot it was Dark Sky. They do I don't know if they're just lucky or they're just really smart, but they pick up some of the best stuff because we've had reviewed so many movies from that company, and I don't think there's one I didn't love, like in that whole batch. Like every time they release something, it's amazing, and this one is no exception. And and like we said earlier, we're serious. Like anytime you have anything you want to promote, we are more than happy to. See, that's the thing. I don't know if Stacy warned you. Once you're in with us, you're in for good. So you get
You're in the
you're
circle.
stuck with us. Yeah. So
thank you, man.
seriously, anytime you want to promote anything, even if you can't make it on, you just want us to get the word out there. You're welcome anytime.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. I really appreciate it, man. That means a lot.
Pleasure.
Yeah, I can't wait for our listeners to check this movie out.
Yeah.
You guys are in for a treat. So, Kenneth, again, thank you so much for coming on. And like Brian said, you're welcome back anytime.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. I look forward to talking to you. Maybe we'll do this, after a little bit of time has passed, enough people have watched the film, and we can, maybe take some questions or just talk about it now freely with everybody knows everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
That'd be cool. All right.
Yes,
amazing.
definitely.
Well, thank you, guys.